Commander Jake Harrison stood at the observation deck of Earth Defense Station Olympus, watching the red surface of Mars slowly rotate below. The year 2157 had brought many changes to humanity, but nothing could have prepared them for what was about to happen. The station hummed with its usual activity as technicians monitored deep space sensors and communications officers tracked cargo ships moving between Earth and the outer colonies. Jake had been stationed on Olympus for 3 years now, and the routine had become comfortable. Wake up at 0600, check overnight reports, review patrol schedules, and handle the endless paperwork that came with managing humanity's first line of defense against whatever might lurk in the darkness between stars. Most days were quiet, filled with tracking asteroids and coordinating supply runs. Today felt different, though, and Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change everything. Lieutenant Danny Cooper rushed into the command center, his face pale and excited. "Commander Harrison, you need to see this right now," he said, holding a data pad with trembling hands. "We're receiving a transmission from outside the solar system, and it's not from any human ship or colony." Jake followed Danny to the main communications console, where Sergeant Lisa Park was adjusting frequencies and checking signal strength. The entire command crew had gathered around, their faces showing mixtures of excitement and fear. For over a century, humans had searched for signs of intelligent life beyond Earth, and now it seemed that life had found them first. "Play it back from the beginning," Jake ordered, settling into his command chair. The speakers crackled with static before. A strange voice emerged, speaking broken English with an accent unlike anything anyone had ever heard. "Greetings to the people of the third planet from the star you call Sol. We are the Zephyrian Confederation, travelers from distant stars who have journeyed far to meet you. We come in peace and friendship, seeking knowledge and cultural exchange. We have studied your transmissions and learned your language. We wish to speak with your leaders and share the wonders of the galaxy with your species." The message repeated several times before ending with coordinates for a meeting point near Jupiter. Jake stared at the speakers long after the transmission ended, trying to process what he had just heard. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and these aliens wanted to meet. "Get me Admiral Carter on Luna Base immediately," Jake commanded, "and patch this transmission through to Earth Defense Command. Everyone needs to hear this." Within hours, the news had spread across human space. From the bustling cities of Earth to the mining colonies of the asteroid belt, people gathered around screens and radios to hear the alien message. Some celebrated, others worried, but everyone understood that this moment would divide human history into before and after. Admiral Lisa Carter arrived at Luna Base from her headquarters on Earth within 12 hours, bringing with her a team of diplomats, scientists, and military advisors. She was a stern woman in her 50s who had spent her entire career preparing for threats to human civilization. The possibility of peaceful alien contact had been discussed in military academies, but most officers expected any alien encounter to be hostile. Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's leading expert on theoretical alien biology, joined the team along with President Helen Stone's personal representative. The group worked around the clock to prepare for humanity's first diplomatic contact with an alien species, drafting protocols and discussing every possible scenario. 3 days after the first transmission, massive silver ships appeared at the designated coordinates near Jupiter. The vessels were unlike anything in human design, smooth and graceful with no visible weapons or engines. They were also enormous, each one larger than Earth's biggest space stations. Long-range sensors detected at least 12 ships in the alien fleet, with the largest being nearly 10 kilometers long. Captain Amy Rodriguez commanded the human delegation aboard the diplomatic vessel Aurora, escorting Admiral Carter and her team to the meeting point. Amy had volunteered for the mission despite her concerns about alien intentions. Her experience commanding patrol ships along the outer system borders had taught her to be suspicious of unexpected visitors, but she understood the historic importance of this moment. The first face-to-face meeting took place aboard a smaller alien craft that approached Aurora with careful, non-threatening movements. The aliens who emerged were tall and graceful, standing nearly 3 meters high with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Their leader introduced himself as Ambassador Kethver, speaking English with the same strange accent from the original transmission. "We are honored to meet the children of Earth," Kethver said, his large eyes showing what appeared to be genuine warmth. "Your species has accomplished much in such a short time. We have watched your progress with great interest and admiration." Dr. Webb studied the aliens carefully, noting their herbivorous teeth and peaceful demeanor. Everything about them suggested a species that had evolved without natural predators, lacking the aggressive instincts that had shaped human development. They moved slowly and deliberately, showing none of the quick reflexes that characterized human behavior. The aliens explained that they represented a confederation of peaceful species that explored the galaxy seeking new civilizations to trade with and learn from. They offered advanced medical technology that could eliminate most human diseases, along with clean energy systems that would solve Earth's remaining environmental problems. In return, they wanted only to study human culture, particularly music, art, and literature. "Our society has become perhaps too logical," Ambassador Kethver explained. "We have lost the ability to create beauty for its own sake. Your species possesses something we have forgotten, and we hope to learn from your emotional expressions and creative spirit." The negotiations continued for weeks as both sides worked out the details of their new relationship. The aliens established small trading posts on Europa and Titan, carefully positioned away from major human settlements. They shared their medical knowledge freely, and within months human doctors were using Zephyrian techniques to cure cancers and genetic disorders that had plagued the species for centuries. Children in schools across human space began learning simple Zephyrian phrases, and cultural exchange programs allowed humans to visit alien worlds for the first time. The aliens seemed genuinely fascinated by human creativity, spending hours listening to music and studying paintings with the intensity of devoted scholars. For 6 months, the partnership flourished beyond anyone's hopes. The aliens kept their promise to share beneficial technology while respecting human independence and territorial boundaries. Trade flowed smoothly, and both species appeared to benefit from the arrangement. President Stone praised the Zephyrians as proof that intelligent life could coexist peacefully, and plans were made for expanded cooperation. Jake Harrison found himself assigned as military liaison to the alien trading post on Europa, working closely with Zephyrian officials to coordinate security and logistics. The aliens were polite and helpful, always eager to answer questions about their technology and culture. They seemed genuinely curious about human military organization, asking detailed questions about command structures and tactical doctrine. Looking back, Jake would realize that the questions should have been a warning. Intelligence Officer Ryan Clark had always been good at noticing things that didn't fit. During his 15 years working for Earth Defense Intelligence, he had developed an instinct for spotting lies and inconsistencies that had saved human lives more than once. 6 months after first contact with the Zephyrians, that same instinct was telling him something was very wrong. Ryan sat in his cramped office aboard Luna Base, surrounded by data screens displaying Zephyrian historical records and cultural files. The aliens had been remarkably open about sharing their history, providing detailed archives dating back thousands of years. Too detailed, Ryan thought as he scrolled through endless records of peaceful exploration and cultural exchange. The problem wasn't what the records contained, but what they didn't contain. According to Zephyrian history, their species had encountered 47 different intelligent civilizations during their travels across the galaxy. They claimed to have established peaceful trading relationships with all of them, sharing technology and culture in mutually beneficial arrangements. Ryan pulled up the current status reports for these civilizations and felt his blood run cold. 12 of the species the Zephyrians had supposedly befriended no longer existed. Their homeworlds were empty, their colonies abandoned, their entire civilizations vanished without explanation. The Zephyrian records simply noted that these species had moved beyond the need for physical existence or had transcended to higher planes of consciousness. Agent Sophie Kane worked at the Zephyrian Cultural Center on Europa, officially serving as a human liaison for the exchange programs. Her real job was gathering intelligence on alien activities and intentions. Sophie had volunteered for the assignment because her background in xenopsychology made her valuable for understanding alien behavior patterns. For weeks, Sophie had noticed strange inconsistencies in Zephyrian behavior. They claimed to be purely peaceful and logical, yet they showed intense interest in human military history and tactical thinking. During cultural discussions, they would steer conversations toward topics like leadership under stress, decision-making in crisis situations, and human responses to existential threats. Sophie had also discovered hidden areas within the cultural center that were restricted to humans. Using her technical skills, she managed to access these areas during night shifts, when most of the alien staff was absent. What she found made her question everything about the supposed friendship between humans and Zephyrians. The restricted areas contained detailed psychological profiles of every human who had visited the center. The aliens had been conducting extensive behavioral analysis, documenting emotional responses, stress reactions, and decision-making patterns. They were particularly interested in human aggression and competitive instincts, traits that seemed foreign to their peaceful nature. Colonel Nathan Brooks commanded the covert reconnaissance unit tasked with gathering intelligence on alien activities throughout the solar system. His team operated under deep cover, using modified civilian ships to approach Zephyrian installations without detection. Nathan had been skeptical of the aliens from the beginning, and his investigation was revealing disturbing patterns. The Zephyrians claimed their homeworld was located in a distant star system, too far for human ships to visit. However, Nathan's team had traced the alien ships' arrival vectors and identified their actual point of origin. When they finally managed to send a stealth probe to the Zephyrian home system, what they discovered challenged everything humanity thought they knew about their new allies. The Zephyrian homeworld was surrounded by massive orbital facilities that dwarfed anything humans had built. These weren't research stations or cultural centers, but enormous archives containing the preserved records of dozens of extinct civilizations. The aliens had been collecting and storing the accumulated knowledge of every species they had encountered, keeping detailed records of their technologies, cultures, and most importantly, their military capabilities. Dr. Marcus Webb had been working closely with Zephyrian scientists, studying their biology and learning about their evolutionary history. The aliens seemed genuinely interested in human physiology and had asked for detailed genetic samples for their research. Dr. Webb had provided the samples willingly, believing they would help both species understand each other better. However, when Dr. Webb analyzed the Zephyrian research data more carefully, he discovered something that made his hands shake with fear. The aliens weren't just studying human genetics for scientific curiosity. They were mapping human DNA with the precision of engineers planning a construction project, paying particular attention to the genes that influenced aggression, stress, response, and tactical thinking. The Zephyrians had evolved on a world without natural predators or competitors. Their peaceful nature wasn't a choice or a cultural development, but a biological limitation. They had never needed to develop defensive instincts or competitive behaviors, because nothing in their environment had threatened them. This made them incredibly advanced in technology and logic, but completely helpless when faced with actual conflict. Ryan Clark's investigation revealed the horrible truth about what had happened to the 12 extinct civilizations. The Zephyrians had approached each species with offers of peaceful trade and cultural exchange, exactly as they had done with humanity. They had studied each civilization's defensive capabilities and survival instincts, learning how different species responded to threats and competition. Once they had gathered enough information, the Zephyrians had used that knowledge to create hybrid warriors that combined alien technology with the biological advantages of the species they had studied. These hybrid soldiers were then used to conquer other civilizations, expanding Zephyrian control across the galaxy while eliminating any potential threats to their expansion. Sophie Kane discovered the most disturbing evidence when she accessed the deepest files in the Cultural Center's computer systems. The Zephyrians had been conducting detailed simulations of human behavior, testing how humans would respond to different types of stress and threat. They had been manipulating minor conflicts between human colonies, studying the tactical decisions and emotional responses that resulted from these engineered situations. Every cultural exchange, every friendly conversation, every shared meal had been part of a massive experiment designed to understand human warfare from the inside. The Zephyrians were particularly fascinated by human unpredictability and the ability to make effective decisions under extreme stress, traits that their logical minds couldn't comprehend or replicate. Colonel Brooks's team made the most chilling discovery when they infiltrated a hidden Zephyrian facility on the edge of the solar system. The aliens had been building production lines for creating hybrid soldiers, combining human genetic material with their own advanced biotechnology. Thousands of artificial wombs were being prepared for mass production of human Zephyrian hybrids that would possess human instincts enhanced by alien technology. The plan was called Operation Synthesis, and it was nearing completion. Within months, the Zephyrians intended to begin large-scale collection of human subjects for their hybridization program. They would create an army of enhanced warriors with human tactical creativity and alien technological advantages, using these forces to complete their conquest of the galaxy. Captain Amy Rodriguez had been assigned to escort a Zephyrian research vessel back to their base, a routine mission that should have been completed without incident. However, when her patrol ship approached the alien vessel, sophisticated jamming equipment disabled her communications and weapons systems. Rodriguez and her crew were captured without firing a shot, becoming the first humans selected for the integration process. The evidence was overwhelming, but humanity's leaders were slow to accept the truth. President Stone had staked her political career on the success of the alien alliance, and many citizens had come to see the Zephyrians as humanity's gateway to a peaceful galactic community. The idea that their new friends were actually studying them like laboratory animals was too disturbing for many people to believe. Ryan Clark, Sophie Kane, Nathan Brooks, and Dr. Webb worked frantically to compile their evidence and present it to Earth Defense Command. Time was running out, and every day of delay gave the Zephyrians more opportunity to complete their preparations for humanity's destruction. General Paul Mason sat at the head of the Emergency War Council table, looking at the faces of humanity's top military leaders. The evidence that Ryan Clark, Sophie Kane, Colonel Brooks, and Dr. Webb had gathered was spread across multiple screens around the room. Each piece of information painted a darker picture of Zephyrian intentions, and the full scope of the alien deception was finally becoming clear. Admiral Carter studied the reconnaissance photos from the Zephyrian home system, her face grim as she counted the massive orbital facilities. 12 extinct civilizations, she said quietly. 12 species that trusted these aliens just like we did, and now they're all gone. The War Council included representatives from every major human colony and military installation. Mars Governor Linda Hayes spoke for the outer colonies, while Earth Defense Secretary Robert King represented the home system. Everyone in the room understood that they were facing the greatest threat in human history, but they also knew that panic would only make the situation worse. Dr. Marcus Webb presented his analysis of the Zephyrian genetic research, explaining how the aliens had been mapping human DNA for military purposes. "They're not just studying us," he told the assembled officers. "They're preparing to remake us into weapons for their own use. The hybrid program is designed to combine our survival instincts with their technology." General Mason had been preparing for this moment his entire career, though he had always imagined the threat would come from human enemies rather than alien ones. The protocols for planetary defense were well established, but fighting an enemy with superior technology and detailed knowledge of human tactics would require new strategies. The most disturbing revelation came from Sophie Kane's intelligence reports. The Zephyrians had been secretly influencing human conflicts for months. creating minor disputes between colonies to study how humans responded to different types of stress. Trade disagreements, territorial disputes, and resource conflicts that everyone had assumed were natural problems had actually been engineered by alien manipulation. "They've been treating us like laboratory animals," Kane reported. "Every argument, every tactical decision, every emotional response has been recorded and analyzed. They know how we think and how we fight better than we know ourselves." The War Council faced an impossible decision. The Zephyrians still maintained their peaceful facade, and most of humanity's civilian population believed the aliens were genuine friends. Starting a war against apparently peaceful visitors would be seen as an act of madness by billions of people who had come to depend on alien medical technology and energy systems. President Stone joined the meeting via secure transmission from Earth, her face showing the strain of the past few days. She had been briefed on the intelligence reports, but the political implications of acting on that information were staggering. "We need absolute proof before we can take any military action," she insisted. "The people won't support a war based on suspicions and circumstantial evidence." Dr. Elena Foster had been working as part of the Human Scientific Exchange Program, spending weeks aboard Zephyrian research vessels studying alien technology. She was one of the few humans who had been given access to restricted areas of alien facilities, and her position made her valuable for gathering intelligence about Zephyrian activities. Elena had noticed strange patterns in the alien research priorities, particularly their intense interest in human stress responses and emotional decision-making. The Zephyrians claimed they wanted to understand human creativity, but their questions focused on how humans performed under pressure rather than how they created art or music. When Elena discovered the true purpose of the research she had been participating in, she realized she was in a unique position to gather critical intelligence. The aliens trusted her because of her scientific credentials, and they had given her access to areas that were off-limits to most humans. She began secretly copying research files and documenting the alien hybrid program. The breakthrough came when Elena managed to access the main computer system of the Zephyrian research facility. What she found confirmed humanity's worst fears about Operation Synthesis. The aliens had detailed plans for capturing millions of humans and using them as raw material for creating hybrid soldiers. The program was scheduled to begin within weeks. Starting with the systematic collection of humans from isolated colonies, Elena sent a coded message to Earth Defense Command. But before she could escape the alien facility, she was discovered by Zephyrian security forces. The aliens had been monitoring all human communications, and they quickly realized that their deception had been exposed. Rather than let Elena warn Earth, they decided to accelerate their timeline and begin Operation Synthesis immediately. Commander Jake Harrison received an emergency mission to rescue Elena and any other human prisoners from the Zephyrian research facility. His team included some of humanity's best special forces soldiers, but they were going up against an enemy with superior technology and knowledge of human tactics. The rescue mission became humanity's first real battle against the Zephyrians, and it revealed both the strengths and weaknesses of each species. The aliens had better weapons and defenses, but they fought with predictable logic that human soldiers could exploit. More importantly, the Zephyrians seemed genuinely surprised by human willingness to risk everything for a single captured comrade. Jake's team fought their way through the alien facility, using tactics that prioritized speed and aggression over careful planning. The Zephyrians had studied human military doctrine, but they hadn't expected humans to abandon established procedures when the situation demanded it. The aliens' logical minds couldn't adapt quickly enough to counter human improvisation and emotional decision-making. The rescue mission succeeded, but Jake made a horrifying discovery when he found Captain Amy Rodriguez in the alien research laboratory. She had been transformed into a prototype hybrid, her body enhanced with alien technology while her mind remained trapped between human memories and programmed loyalty to the Zephyrians. Amy looked human, but her movements were too precise, and her eyes showed no recognition when Jake called her name. The aliens had successfully combined human genetics with their own biotechnology, creating a soldier with enhanced physical abilities and tactical knowledge. Worse still, The hybrid retained enough human memories to understand human psychology and predict human behavior. Jake was forced to fight Amy in order to escape the facility, and the emotional impact of battling his former friend and colleague drove home the true horror of what the Zephyrians were planning. They weren't just going to kill humanity. They were going to turn humans into weapons against their own species. The failed rescue mission and Amy's transformation provided the proof that President Stone needed to justify military action. The hybrid soldier was living evidence of Zephyrian intentions, and even the most optimistic supporters of the alien alliance could no longer deny the threat facing humanity. However, the political debate and military preparation had cost precious time. While human leaders argued about how to respond to the alien threat, Zephyrian sleeper agents activated across the solar system. These agents, who had been posing as cultural exchange participants and trade representatives, simultaneously seized control of key installations on Europa, Titan, and several asteroid mining stations. The coordinated attack was swift and efficient, catching human defenders completely off guard. The Zephyrians had been studying human defensive positions for months, and they knew exactly where to strike for maximum effect. Within hours, they controlled several major installations and had begun the mass collection of human subjects for their hybridization program. Admiral Carter launched immediate counterattacks, but the damage was done. The Zephyrians had dropped their peaceful mask and revealed themselves as conquerors rather than friends. The war that humanity had hoped to avoid was now inevitable, and it would be fought against an enemy that knew human weaknesses better than humans knew themselves. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the command center of Earth Defense Station Olympus, watching red warning lights flash across every tactical display. Within 6 hours of the Zephyrian sleeper agent attacks, humanity had lost control of 12 major installations across the outer system. The aliens had struck with surgical precision, targeting the most critical supply depots, communication relays, and research facilities. The speed and coordination of the attacks proved that the Zephyrians had been planning this operation for months. Every sleeper agent had activated simultaneously, overwhelming human defenders who had trusted their alien visitors. The mining station on Ceres had fallen within minutes, its security forces confused and disorganized by attackers they had considered friends. Just hours earlier, Carter launched Operation Defiance immediately, mobilizing every available military asset in human space. The plan was simple but desperate: hit every known Zephyrian position at the same time, using overwhelming force to compensate for technological disadvantages. If humanity was going to fight this war, they would fight it with everything they had. Captain Ben Torres commanded Fighter Squadron 7, leading 36 pilots in modified combat ships toward the Zephyrian forces occupying Europa Station. The alien defenses were formidable, protected by energy shields that could deflect conventional weapons and automated systems that tracked incoming threats with perfect accuracy. Torres had studied the alien defensive patterns during the flight to Europa, and he noticed something important about how the Zephyrians responded to human attacks. Their defenses were logical and efficient, designed to counter traditional military tactics with minimal waste of resources. The aliens calculated optimal responses to every human move, but their calculations assumed that humans would behave rationally. "All fighters, listen carefully," Torres broadcast to his squadron. "These aliens think they understand how we fight, but they've never seen humans who have nothing left to lose. We're going to show them something their computers can't calculate." Torres led his fighters in a series of seemingly suicidal attacks against the alien defenses. Instead of coordinated formations and careful tactical strikes, the human pilots flew chaotic patterns that made no strategic sense. They targeted unimportant systems while ignoring critical installations, wasted ammunition on diversionary attacks, and broke every rule of space combat doctrine. The Zephyrian defense computers couldn't predict these irrational moves because no logical commander would order such wasteful tactics. The alien systems kept calculating optimal responses to attacks that never came, while the real human assault struck from directions that made no military sense. Within 2 hours, Torres had broken through the Zephyrian defenses and recaptured Europa Station. Lieutenant Lucy Chun led ground forces in the assault on Titan Mining Complex, where Zephyrian troops had taken control of the hydrogen extraction facilities. The aliens had positioned themselves in defensive positions that covered all logical approach routes, creating a network of overlapping fields of fire that should have made any human attack impossible. Chin studied the alien positions and realized that the Zephyrians had made the same mistake as their space defenses. They had prepared for rational human tactics but couldn't predict irrational ones. Instead of attacking the defensive positions directly, Jin ordered her troops to assault areas that had no tactical value whatsoever. The human soldiers attacked empty storage buildings, abandoned construction sites, and maintenance tunnels that led nowhere important. The Zephyrians repositioned their forces to defend against these meaningless attacks, gradually weakening their coverage of the actual objectives. When Chin finally ordered the real assault, the alien defenses had been pulled out of position. By chasing phantom threats, Dr. Marcus Webb made a crucial discovery while analyzing captured Zephyrian technology from the retaken installations. The hybrid soldiers that the aliens had created retained more human characteristics than their creators. Realized. The Zephyrian scientists had focused on suppressing human emotions and independent thinking, but they hadn't been able to eliminate these traits entirely. Webb found that the hybrid soldiers responded to specific emotional stimuli in ways that their alien programming couldn't control. Fear, anger, and especially loyalty to other humans could overwhelm the Zephyrian mental conditioning if triggered at the right moment. The aliens had tried to create perfect soldiers, but they had underestimated the strength of human emotional bonds. Working with communications specialist Jane Miller, Webb developed a signal that could trigger suppressed human memories in hybrid soldiers. The signal used a combination of human music, familiar voices, and emotional imagery to bypass alien programming and awaken dormant human consciousness. It wasn't guaranteed to work, but it gave humanity a weapon against their own transformed people. Commander Jake Harrison led the most dangerous mission of the war when he volunteered to assault the main Zephyrian research facility hidden in the asteroid belt. Intelligence reports indicated that the aliens were preparing to launch over 1 million hybrid soldiers in a final assault on Earth, and the facility had to be destroyed before that army could be deployed. Harrison's strike team consisted of volunteers who understood they were unlikely to survive the mission. The research facility was heavily defended and located in a position that made escape nearly impossible. However, the team also included several soldiers who had lost friends and family to the Zephyrian attacks, and their motivation went beyond military duty to personal revenge. The assault on the research facility became a demonstration of everything that made humans dangerous opponents. Harrison's team didn't follow established doctrine or logical tactical procedures. Instead, they fought with creativity, desperation, and an emotional intensity that the Zephyrians couldn't understand or counter. Sergeant Mike Davis discovered the key to fighting Zephyrian forces when his squad was trapped in a section of the facility with no apparent escape route. The aliens had calculated every possible human response to the tactical situation, but they hadn't considered that humans might simply ignore the tactical situation entirely. Davis ordered his men to blast holes in walls that led to vacuum attack through areas that should have been impossible to traverse, and use their own equipment in ways that violated every safety protocol. The Zephyrians had studied human military manuals, but they hadn't studied human stubbornness and willingness to take insane risks when survival was at stake. The breakthrough came when Harrison's team reached the central control room of the research facility. The alien commanders had prepared for every type of human attack except one. They hadn't expected humans to simply ignore their own safety and fight with the fury of cornered animals defending their young. Harrison fought his way through the facility, while Davis and his squad held off alien reinforcements, using tactics that should have gotten them all killed but somehow kept them alive through sheer bloody-mindedness. The human soldiers didn't fight like professional military units. They fought like desperate survivors who refused to accept defeat. The mission climaxed when Harrison reached the hybrid production chambers. and discovered thousands of artificial wombs containing developing human-alien soldiers. The sight of his own species being transformed into weapons for alien conquest filled him with a rage that no amount of military training had prepared him for. Harrison planted explosive charges throughout the facility while fighting off waves of alien defenders and newly created hybrid soldiers. The battle was chaotic and vicious, with humans using improvised weapons and desperate tactics against technologically superior enemies. The Zephyrians had better equipment and training, but they couldn't match human emotional intensity and willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. The research facility exploded just as Harrison and the survivors of his team reached their escape ships. The destruction eliminated the hybrid production capability and dealt a crucial blow to Zephyrian plans for conquering humanity. More importantly, the mission proved that humans could defeat alien forces when they fought with creativity and emotional commitment rather than logical military doctrine. The success of Operation Defiance marked the turning point of the war, but it also revealed the true cost of fighting an enemy that had studied human weaknesses so carefully. Every victory came at a terrible price, and humanity was learning that survival required abandoning the civilized rules of warfare in favor of something much more primitive and dangerous. The Zephyrian main fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system like a storm of silver death, their massive ships emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation. Admiral Lisa Carter watched the long-range sensors from the command deck of Earth Defense Station Olympus, counting over 200 alien vessels of various sizes approaching at steady speed toward the inner planets. Ambassador Kethver broadcast one final message to humanity, his voice no longer carrying the peaceful tone that had characterized their first meetings. People of Earth, you have proven to be more troublesome than anticipated. Your irrational behavior and refusal to accept the natural order has forced us to accelerate our timeline. Surrender now, and some of your species will be preserved for future study. Carter smiled grimly as she activated the General Fleet Communications channel. Every human ship within 3 days' travel of Earth had been recalled for this final battle, creating the largest military force in human history. Cargo haulers had been armed with improvised weapons, civilian transports carried volunteer fighters, and even pleasure craft had been converted into makeshift warships. The assembled human fleet was a chaotic mix of military vessels, converted civilian ships, and hastily constructed defensive platforms. Nothing about the formation looked professional or organized by traditional military standards, but Carter understood that traditional standards meant nothing in this war. The Zephyrians expected humans to fight like civilized soldiers, and humanity's best chance lay in proving them wrong. Fighter pilot Kelly Murphy climbed into the cockpit of her modified interceptor, knowing that this would likely be her last mission. The human fighters were outnumbered 10-1, and their weapons were no match for Zephyrian shielding technology. However, Kelly and her fellow pilots had spent weeks developing tactics that had nothing to do with weapons effectiveness, and everything to do with human psychology. The space battle began when the Zephyrian fleet reached Mars orbit, their ships maintaining perfect formations while advancing toward Earth with calculated precision. The alien commanders had studied every recorded human space battle, and they positioned their forces to counter every known human tactic with overwhelming firepower and superior technology. Admiral Carter waited until the alien fleet was fully committed to their attack formation before launching the human counterattack. Instead of meeting the Zephyrians with organized battle lines, she ordered every human ship to attack independently using whatever tactics their individual commanders thought would work best. The result was complete chaos that no computer system could have predicted or countered. Human ships attacked from random directions using weapons that shouldn't have been effective. Cargo haulers rammed alien vessels while broadcasting ancient war songs, and fighter pilots flew suicidal missions that accomplished nothing except disrupting alien formations. Kelly Murphy led her squadron in what became known as the Luna Gambit, a maneuver so reckless that no sane military commander would have approved it. The human fighters accelerated directly toward the largest Zephyrian battleship, ignoring defensive fire and making no attempt to avoid certain destruction. the Zephyrian defense computers calculated optimal intercept courses for the human fighters, preparing to destroy them before they could reach their target. However, the aliens hadn't considered that the human pilots might not be trying to reach their target at all. At the last possible moment, Murphy and her squadron veered away from the battleship and crashed into the smaller escort vessels that had moved to support the main ship. The tactic made no military sense and accomplished nothing that couldn't have been achieved more efficiently with conventional attacks. However, the sight of human pilots deliberately sacrificing themselves to destroy alien ships had a profound psychological impact on both sides of the battle. The humans fought with renewed fury while the Zephyrians struggled to understand enemies who valued victory more than survival. General Paul Mason commanded the ground defense of Earth as Zephyrian drop ships began landing near major population centers. The aliens had studied human urban combat techniques, and they deployed their forces in formations designed to counter known human defensive strategies. They positioned themselves to control key infrastructure while avoiding the civilian casualties that might provoke irrational human responses. Mason realized that the Zephyrians were still trying to fight a logical war against an opponent who had abandoned logic entirely. Instead of defending important targets, he ordered human forces to attack areas that had no strategic value but high emotional significance. Schools, hospitals, and cultural sites became battlegrounds where humans fought with desperate intensity while alien forces struggled to understand the tactical importance of seemingly meaningless objectives. Dr. Elena Foster had been rescued from the alien research facility during Harrison's raid, and she now worked frantically to reverse the hybridization process that had transformed thousands of captured humans. Her breakthrough came when she realized that the Zephyrian scientists had made a fundamental error in their understanding of human biology. The aliens had assumed that human emotions and independent thinking were weaknesses that needed to be suppressed in their hybrid soldiers. However, these traits were actually survival mechanisms that had evolved over millions of years of human development. When Foster found a way to reactivate these suppressed characteristics, the hybrid soldiers began rebelling against their alien programming. Captain Amy Rodriguez had been the first human subjected to the hybridization process, and she became the first to break free from Zephyrian control when Foster's treatment reactivated her suppressed memories. The experience of being trapped inside her own mind while alien programming controlled her actions had given Amy insights into Zephyrian psychology that no human had possessed before. Amy led a group of freed hybrid soldiers in an assault on the Zephyrian command ship, using their enhanced abilities and knowledge of alien systems to penetrate defenses that would have stopped normal human forces. The hybrid soldiers retained their human creativity and emotional drives, while possessing alien-enhanced physical capabilities, making them perfect weapons against their former masters. The turning point of the battle came when Commander Jake Harrison coordinated a simultaneous attack on multiple Zephyrian command vessels. Human forces struck at the alien fleet from every direction at once, using tactics that prioritized confusion and chaos over military efficiency. The Zephyrians found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to have no consistent strategy or predictable behavior patterns. Harrison's own ship had been damaged early in the battle, but he refused to withdraw from combat even when his vessel was clearly doomed. Instead, he ordered his crew to ram the alien flagship at maximum speed, broadcasting a message that would be remembered throughout human history. "You came here to study how humans fight. Let us show you how humans die." The collision between Harrison's ship and the Zephyrian flagship destroyed both vessels, but it also eliminated the command structure that coordinated the alien fleet. Without their logical command hierarchy, individual Zephyrian ships began making independent decisions that contradicted each other and created gaps in their defensive formations. Ambassador Kethver found himself trapped aboard a damaged command ship, watching his carefully planned invasion dissolve into chaos as human forces exploited every weakness in alien logic and coordination. For the first time in his species' history, a Zephyrian leader was forced to confront the reality of military defeat. The final moments of the battle demonstrated everything that made humanity dangerous to civilizations that relied on logic and predictability. Human fighters continued attacking even when their ships were destroyed. Cargo pilots rammed alien vessels while singing folk songs, and ground forces fought room-to-room battles for objectives that made no strategic sense but represented everything they valued about their civilization. Kethver realized that the Zephyrians had made a fatal error in their understanding of human nature. They had studied human violence without comprehending human love, analyzed human tactics without understanding human sacrifice, and attempted to harvest human survival instincts without recognizing the bonds that made those instincts so powerful. The surviving Zephyrian ships retreated from Earth's solar system, their invasion force shattered by an enemy that fought with weapons they couldn't measure and motivations they couldn't comprehend. The aliens had come seeking to exploit humanity's capacity for war, but they had discovered that human warfare was inseparable from human compassion, loyalty, and willingness to die for something greater than individual survival. Earth emerged from the battle scarred but victorious, and humanity began the long process of rebuilding while preparing for the possibility that other alien species might someday attempt similar exploitation. The galaxy now knew that humans were not victims to be studied and harvested, but guardians who would fight with terrifying intensity to protect what they loved. Commander Harrison's sacrifice became a symbol of human determination.